Welcome to part 4 of 100 lessons from A.S. Neill's book, Dominie's Log. So this is lesson number 4, and let's see what the subject is. I've been thinking about discipline overnight. I've seen a headmaster who insisted on what he called perfect discipline. His bands, children, sat still all day. A movement foreshadowed the strap. Every child jumped at the word of command. He had a very quiet life. This reminds me of my teacher training. There were two instances. One was during my teaching practice, where we had to work with a school and a class for a whole term. And I was doing science, so I was with the head of science, and during one of the lessons, and it was the first lesson with this particular group. They were year 7, so they were sort of 11-year-olds. They just arrived from primary school, so normally very eager students and slightly frightened by the large scale of the school and the fact that they were moving from class to class and they hadn't really worked out where they were or where they were going to go. Anyway, he was taking this class, and at the back there had been a bit of noise while he was talking. So he told them, he stared at them and told them to be quiet and continued. And then a couple of moments later there was a noise again, and this time the teacher walked towards the noise, pointed to one of the boys, told him to stand up, told him to walk to the side of the room and to stand against the wall, and in front of the whole class he stood in front of the boy and he yelled at him. He yelled at him about how dare he disrespect the teacher, how dare he interrupt his class, how dare he, having been told to be silent, that he was talking and wasting time and disturbing others. And by the time he'd finished, and it was nearly nose to nose in terms of how close he got to this boy in terms of body language and intimidation, the boy was in tears. He told the boy to get back to his seat, and he continued with the lesson. Afterwards, and you must remember that I was a student teacher, so he was meant to be showing me the ropes. The teacher came up to me and explained that of course he wasn't angry, and of course he wasn't upset, but that he would do this with one child in every lesson, in every group. And that once he'd done it, he would have discipline for the rest of the 5-6 years that the students were there. So that was his style of discipline, was to sacrifice one poor child and humiliate them in front of the others. The thing called zero tolerance is very predominant today in our schools, and it's a method of trying to get obedience from the children, where any minor infringement, any minor breaking of the laws will be punished. And I went back to my old school, which is an all-boys grammar school, to do some stuff on citizenship and to see the head teacher, who was a friend of mine, called my dad's anyway. And I was chatting to one of the boys, and one of the boys said that it was appalling that the school had this zero tolerance. And the thing about it was that if you had your tie undone, or your shirt poking out, or your uniform wasn't quite right, that the punishments were the same as if you'd sworn at a teacher, if you'd done something else. That there didn't seem to be any discrimination between the actual punishment and the action. And this is what frustrated this young student that was talking to me. And it's very interesting because, the one thing that Zoe says about childhood and raising children is the importance of boundaries, and that children learn about boundaries. But the whole point of Summerhill and the whole point of democratic education is it's the children that are part of defining the laws. It's the children that are part of creating the justice. And what kind of justice system exists where whatever you do, you will get the same kind of punishment, irrespective of what you've done? What kind of world does that give to children? How do they interpret that as young people? That you get punished with detention, whether you had your shoelaces undone or your tie undone, or if you've been calling someone names. Anyway, let's see what Neill goes on to say. And I think he's right, by the way. I think he's saying that the true disciplinarian is basically having, he has a good life in terms of he can control the classroom. I must confess, Neill says, that I am an atrociously bad disciplinarian. Today, Violet Brown began to sing Tipperary to herself when I was marking the registers. I looked up and said, "Why the happiness this morning, Violet?" And she blushed and grinned. I am a poor disciplinarian. I find that normally I am very, very slack. I don't mind if they talk or not. Indeed, if the hum of conversation stops, I feel that something has happened, and I invariably look towards the door to see whether the inspector has arrived. I find that I am almost a good disciplinarian when my liver is bad. I then demand silence, but I fear I do not get it, and I generally laugh. The only discipline I ask for usually is the discipline that draws the interest. So the discipline he wants is simply that the children are engaged, and they're engaged because of their interest, that they're enjoying the learning and they want to learn. Which is an interesting definition in terms of discipline. I do not like strict discipline, for I believe that a child should have as much freedom as possible. I want a child to be human, and I try to be human myself. In fact, there's one of the slogans, really, or one of the phrases that is used a lot in the New Ideals in Education community, is that it's about the relationship between the child and the teacher, and that relationship is one of learning together, working together, and in a sense is one of friendship rather than one of power. I walk to school each morning with my briar, my pipe, between my lips, and if the tobacco is not smoked, I stand and watch the boys play. I would kiss my wife in my classroom, but I do not have a wife. A wee lassie stopped me on the way to school this morning, and she pushed a very sticky sweetie into my hand. I took my pipe from my mouth and ate the sweetie, and I asked for another. She was highly delighted. Discipline to me means a pose on the part of the teacher. It makes him very remote. It lends him dignity. And why should I be dignified before my children? Will they scorn me if I slide with them on the ice on the high street? There was a dandy ice slide on the road today. I gave them half an hour's extra play this morning, and I slid all the time. And my assistant teachers are great at the game. So there he is, playing the games with the children, not only with the children, but in the high street, on the ice slide, with his assistant teachers. And Neill would have been dressed in a suit, and there he is in the high street of the village, sliding on the ice with the children. He's given them an extra half hour's play time in order to play on the ice. So isn't that a wonderful image in terms of the relationship, that you're building a relationship with your children and your students? The behaviour of the children is not to do with power. It's not to do with rules and arbitrary that are created by the authority of the teacher and the school, and it's not about punishing it. And especially in 1914, the punishment was physical. in terms of the strap or the leather belt or the taws, which is a leather belt with cut into strands at the end. But it's not about controlling children in this way. Here it is controlling children through enthusiasm and shared learning together and activity and play. Thank you.